Hello and welcome to the Be the Push podcast. My name's Jack Ferguson and I'm here to bring you the best minds in small business and entrepreneurship. Through these conversations, I want to provide you with actionable advice that helps you take the next step in your business journey. The show notes for the episodes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and then just click on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today's conversation is centered around sales. So I talked to Paul Davies, who's a sales specialist, for a good hour and a bit. It was quite a long conversation, and we covered a lot of tactics and mindset around sales. Sales is something I've struggled with myself at times, and Paul really broke it down for us. The main thing I got out of it too is Paul's just a regular guy. He's not your stereotypical salesman. He acknowledges that he wants to build relationships and doesn't want to go for the quick sell. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It should give you a lot of practical, tactical advice when it comes to selling. And as always, the show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast, and you just need to click on the link to Paul's episode. Enjoy. Okay, so today we're here with Paul Davies. Paul, how are you going?
Oh, I'm good. Great, good. Thanks, Jack. How are you?
I'm pretty well. I usually give the intro about the guest on the podcast, but today, do you want to just give us the broad strokes of your career? Or might try something different.
Yeah, sure. No worries. So I've been in B2B sales for about 18 years now. So I started working in Sydney, then moved across to Hong Kong, and then for the last 12 years I've been back in Brisbane. So across those areas I've been all these different types of industries, so publishing, software, online training and consultancy, as well as professional services.
Mm-hmm. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in central Queensland,
right.
Bundaberg and Gladstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When did you make the move to Brisbane?
So just after high school came down. So originally I came down, I was a mad keen musician, so everything was music, classical music. So I played the trumpet, practiced 2-3 hours a day, music theory, piano, and got into the conservatorium. And did that for a couple of years. Yeah, and it was a great experience. But I still love music. I love listening to music and playing from time to time. But I just realized I didn't want to be a teacher, and I didn't want to be living in a suitcase. Yeah. So I eventually found my way through to business and sales.
Yeah. So have you always worked in sales?
Since I got out of uni, it's been that. So I experimented while I was studying to be an accountant, and just realized that's not my calling in life. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so then I had some friends who had graduated and were sales reps, and I enjoy meeting people and the diversity that sales brings, as well as as a salesperson, you can really plan your day, and you've got a lot of control over what you do, as opposed to other careers where it's fairly structured.
Gotcha. Okay, so and you've been working in sales for 18 years, is that right now?
Yes.
Cool. Has sales changed over that time?
Yeah, you know what, it has. My first job in Sydney, I was working in the financial services area, selling online, or the very first parts of online in 1998, and as well as print publishing and advertising. And the process was really about, a bit of pressure, a bit of coercion, kind of like the typical image of sales you see. Or sometimes it's still prevalent in, say, areas like real estate or other industries where there is a real let's close this, let's move forward quickly. Yep. And so what I've noticed, and also that was always a struggle for me, because I just I'm not a in your face sort of person. So
you were for the listeners, like Paul is. You'd never guess you were a salesman, according to the stereotype.
Yeah, that's right. I do my best not to look like a salesperson or sound like one.
So you're too nice.
Well, yeah, try to be.
For the stereotype anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So over time, it's changed. So the advent of the internet and the requirement for people to the buyer has more control. So you probably heard the phrase caveat emptor, the buyer beware, and that's typical. Where in the old days you go to a car yard and say, "Look, I need to buy a car," and the car dealer would really know a lot more than you, and so he had the greater control in that relationship.
Yeah, he tells you what he wants to tell you and leaves out the stuff that's not going to help him or her.
Exactly, and so and people are always uncomfortable with that. We still occasionally encounter that in various forms, but now with the advent of obviously the internet's matured and the availability of information has changed. So nowadays, if you go to buy a car, you know so much about the car, you may know more about the car dealer than the car dealer does. So you could even find out what the price was paid for from the wholesale or from the factory as well. So you can know all the reviews, you can know what the issues are, what you should expect to pay from other suppliers. So you've got so much more control. So people are saying, well, that's perhaps caveat venditor, seller beware.
Right.
So it's really interesting. So in my career, it's always been B2B, and apart from a bit of door-to-door selling while I was at uni, and that relationship is really the key thing. You're trying to build an open relationship with a new customer, and many times if they reach out to you, they're probably about 60 to 70% of the way along the decision process.
Sure.
So they're not able to. It's much harder for you to influence their thinking when they've already sort of come up with what they want to do.
Yeah.
So,
were you able to do the high pressure stuff back in the day?
Not very well. It was really hard. It was just, I was definitely assertive, and definitely what got me through those early years was really just my ability to follow up and keep working with customers and focus on their issues and their problems and challenges. And so, that's just my personality type, I guess. So, I didn't want people to feel uncomfortable. So if they didn't want to buy from me or they weren't ready to buy, I would go, okay, that's fine. Let's chat in 6 months' time. So, whereas the old school sales would be like, no, we need to turn you around to make a decision now, sort of thing. And look, that there's definitely sometimes reasons for doing that, and there's probably some areas or pockets where that still occurs, and there's a good reason to do that. But it just didn't suit my personality.
Sure. So when did you see that start to change?
It was gradual, and I guess also I moved across different industries at the same time.
Yep.
So I went from being financial services and software industries, and in different countries as well. Probably in the early 2000s, the things obviously with the internet and information asymmetry and more information was out there than ever before about different options that customers have.
So when I think of sales, I still get that icky feeling a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's I still see the image of the person with the nicely tailored suit and the slick haircut, and they only ever talk about how amazing their product is and it's going to be so good, and it always feels like they're over-promising. Do you take any approach similar to that? Will you promise a lot?
Well, my first step is really trying to understand the customer's problem or opportunity. So people either move by they want to gain something, or they want to they're worried about something and gain or pain. So really my first approach, and it's what I've seen in a lot of really good salespeople that are very successful regardless of culture around the world, is that they're more like a doctor. They're trying to diagnose what your issues are. They will ask you, well, where does it hurt? What do you think is causing that? Or who else is impacted by this problem? And have you thought what is the process you think you could do to solve that sort of thing? So, and then when they really understand that, then they'll talk about some options to consider. So it's really about let's work together as more as a partnership, as opposed to I'm trying to force you my way of thinking.
Right.
And it's just natural to do that. Like I think most of us are wired and feel more comfortable doing that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I, as a customer, if I put myself in the customer's shoes, so what can I do to help them to be successful? And if that's to like, well, I can refer you to my competitor because I don't do that service, but they do, that's fine. And I'm comfortable with that. So and you leave a lasting impression as more of a trusted advisor as opposed to somebody that's just there for now. I mean, all those pressures, they don't go away for a salesperson, or a business owner. So you still need to deliver on sales, even though it's the end of the month or end of the quarter.
Yep.
So, but I find that I approach sales and opportunities as more as an investor. So if I've got a portfolio of opportunities, so I don't just have, if you build as many different opportunities and understand their maturity stage, then you can say, well, I've built 10 opportunities that are maturing and I expect 2 or 3 of them to close, which should get me my target. So working on that sort of rate, you can achieve your targets. You don't have to be that sort of killer attitude towards customers. I'm going to slay all these customers.
And it feels like when I have done that, I've done it before, where you've tried to force your service or your product on someone. It feels terrible for a start, and it doesn't seem to work. So how do you get that first meeting though to then diagnose their problems? Because I wouldn't know how do you approach initially?
Yeah, for sure. So really good question. So I first think about what type of customers I want. So do I want some blue chip customers, some high profile brands? If I'm in a marketplace or I've got a business that's very small, then I tend to go for the high brands or the high recognition customers, because then they can then endorse you and down the track when you've got all these big brands as customers. And so that's the first thing, is say, well, who do I want to target? Who are my ideal customers? Secondly, I have got approach, and that's something we'll talk about, is a way to get that first meeting. Now, the purpose from my perspective for the first meeting is about opening a relationship. It's not about selling them right there and then. I mean, it can occur where if they've got a problem that's aligned to what you're offering.
They'd have to be pretty desperate though, like to sign straight away, right?
Yeah,
like they really want to fix that problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Right now.
Yeah, and that happens pretty regularly for me as well. But if usually a first customer, you need to build a relationship of trust first, and so my process is this: I'll identify the organisation, and then secondly, the highest ranking person that has a level of accountability for my solution. Okay, so it could be the CEO, could be CIO, could be an executive level as high as I can. If I was selling to a big multinational, then if I'm pitching to Boeing, for example, I'm not going to sell to the CEO of Boeing because that's too high. But most companies have the reasonably good sized companies. You can go to a senior manager and target them. So, and the next step is actually then crafting a letter that can be short and to the point, addressing why you should meet with them, what the opportunity of their time. So you're selling the meeting, not your products or services. Okay. So, and that's an easier sell. So you're not trying to convert the whole world. You're just trying to say, let's just move from this point to this point, which is a couple of steps. And so if you can, and I count a success at this stage as you've met with that person for coffee for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and you've had a chat about what they're doing. They've explained some of their challenges, and you've talked about how you work with other customers to solve similar problems. And then if there's some actionable points out of that, so you get to have a meeting with their subject matter experts or talk about those with their stakeholders of this problem, then you're really on the way to being successful with that customer. You're not trying to you're not trying to force something that they may not want or need at that time. So unfortunately, a lot of people still get stuck in that that mode set where they just send a generic letter or email out, or which
So what do you mean by letter?
Oh, okay, good question. So for me, in this process, it's a PDF letter. So it's a Word document I turn into a PDF. Now, what I do is not send it directly to the senior manager. I'll send it to that person's assistant if they've got one, or office manager, somebody that helps them on an admin level. And I've found throughout all my experiences that the direct path, or the quickest path, is not the direct path. So I'll phone up their executive assistant and say, look, I have this letter I need to send through to your manager, Trish, and can I email it to you? And what this person you're talking to is their gatekeeper. So they're about filtering, and so they're filtering you, whether you are a salesperson or you're a person that could be a lawyer trying to send them something like a letter of offer or demand, or it could be a serious business issue that they need to receive. So they go into that, I need to get this letter to my boss. And so they do it. So the conversation is usually, I've got this letter, would you pass it through to Trish, and we can, and I'd like to set up an appointment or follow up a few days later to then set up an appointment. 20 minutes, can catch up at a coffee or their office, whatever that suits. And so, okay, great. And so you get from them their email, the assistant's email address, their direct phone number. And so long as you're working in just in a friendly way, and you're trying to help them, you're not trying to pressure them or anything like that, most people are actually really happy to do that. They see you as they're not seeing you as a salesperson. You're just wanting to open the door, a conversation. Right.
So sending a letter to the assistant is your strategy.
Exactly. So if for example, imagine the opposite. So imagine I'm a green salesperson, and this is what I did myself. Like before I stumbled upon this, is I say, look, I need to talk to Trish or Jonathan about how we can improve your internet speed, and automatically their I guess you could say their guard goes up, and they filter you as somebody that they need to protect their manager against. So they say, well, he's really busy or she's really busy, and they got their calendars really booked out for the next 2 months, and they're really not into that sort of. Why don't you go talk to somebody else at a lower level? So, and that will happen because that's their job, is to protect their manager from what time wasters and gatekeepers. And so the more senior the manager, the more salespeople trying to target them. So, and this process, if it's done well, the hardest thing is the letter, making the letter tight, as like you're selling the meeting, you're not selling a product, and the object is to share your experience with other customers that you've had that might have similar challenges to them, and how you could have a discussion about how these organisations have overcome certain difficulties or been able to gain certain value out of some opportunities in the marketplace. So it's really about you're a subject matter. You're more like a subject matter expert.
Sure.
You're sharing your expertise. Like we've worked with your XYZ bank. We've worked with A, B, and C banks, and they have these concerns which could be similar to you. And I'd like to grab 20 minutes of your time just to talk about how they've overcome these challenges. And so you're really about, I'm here to help you. I've got some ideas, and just see what they think, what their thoughts were. So
I want to drill down into the contents of that letter a bit. But before I do that, I want to ask, are the words, I noticed you use the word letter and the word appointment instead of appointment instead of meeting, and I suppose letter instead of email.
Yeah.
Is that very important to use those words?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, for letter maybe, because it's, so emails, we get, I think I've got about over 30,000 emails in my inbox for my current job over the last few years. So emails, we get thousands of them, and you don't want to be, I still see it, send a letter, but as an attachment. So I PDF the letter up, and it usually then the PA will then print it out. And the senior manager will read it, and so it's a physical thing. And they can then say they'll have their 10 a.m. appointment every day just to go through correspondence and get actions from the previous actions, and so they'll review that and make a decision. Like usually, probably 5 seconds. They'll scan what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now the contents of the letter. The question is you wanted to know. It's a structure along a almost like a proposal format. So you're building the situation. You're talking about your objectives, your tasks, and you're almost like building a bridge from their situation to you. So it's a process that follows a proposal structure,
Mm-hmm.
and and working through that, takes a little bit of work and effort.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tailor that to different industries
Mm-hmm.
and tweak it. It's always about what can I take out of the letter
Mm-hmm.
to make it even smaller and shorter,
Mm-hmm.
because what is the most efficient way of sending my message
Mm-hmm.
in the least number of words.
Yeah.
And that takes revisions, and I see it as a almost like you'd be familiar with the lean startup, where you build, measure, learn. You keep continually iterate and improve something based
Yep.
on the feedback you get.
Yep.
So over time, I've developed letters, and then I've improved them, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a new job and I'll start from scratch and rebuild it again. So it's basically offering the opportunity to meet with a customer,
Mm-hmm.
and you're selling the meeting. You're selling like, I'd like to grab 20 minutes of your time to talk about X, which we have solved this problem, or we are working with these customers in solving this, and we think this could be of value to you.
Okay. That sort of sounds a little bit like a sell, though, in the letter to me. Like if you say, we're working with these customers to solve this, like surely they're going to know then that, you're a salesperson.
It's a balance between, that's more about demonstrating your qualifications.
Okay.
So it's like we're not just and demonstrating your qualifications is important. So,
Mhm.
and also they do know what you're about. Like you're just there to have a chat, but you're there you have a business that you run or that you're part of,
Yeah.
and that works in this. And people know that you obviously your agenda is to sell, but
Mhm.
but they're also happy to have a chat as well.
Yep.
Like I would, and even maybe it's Australian culture. We're not as comfortable as in saying no to
Yep.
people, and so we'd rather just put people off.
Mhm.
And as say more direct cultures like Holland or the US or other people, where you'll actually could be more direct. So people would rather just avoid you. So, but when it's a conversation, people don't feel that they'll be uncomfortable. That they may learn something, and the idea is to give them something of value, even if it doesn't go any further.
Okay, so you're sort of framing it as you're sharing the solution to how you've helped X problem with them.
That's right.
But we wouldn't obviously mention a product or a service or anything during this time, would you?
Not usually. No.
Okay.
I mean, it's more of what works for the industry and what
Mhm.
works for the customers. So if you can get people at a early stage of their decision process, and if it's for example, the cloud's been around for over 5 years, probably 7 or 8 years now. So it's a common term now. So if I was selling cloud infrastructure and services, people would have already thought about the cloud already before I spoke to them about it.
Gotcha, yep.
So I'd need to think about how do I want to phrase that type of product
Mhm.
versus something that's brand new.
Gotcha.
And so
yep.
if it's brand new, then we're just talking about issues. If
Mhm.
it's a mature marketplace, you can put a little bit about just a little bit about what you do that differentiates
Mhm.
your products versus others, because in the end you are selling. And but if it's if it's more about if I need to evangelize this idea first and then get the interest and then sell. So it just depends.
Yep.
But there's generally, I think we'll put links to the show notes and things like that
of course, yeah.
how
Yeah.
to do that. So
Okay. So, and with the, you talked about the assistant and how you call them to say you've got a letter for their boss. Do you get much resistance at that stage?
No, it's basically most cases, at least 50% of cases, they take it on face value.
50%?
Yeah, at least.
Wow.
At
Okay.
least.
Wow.
I would say, and just talking about that, so a success for me at this point is getting a meeting with this person.
Yeah, sure.
So, and they'll do, these are the things that will occur. So first off, they'll reject you, and that will still occur. They'll say, no, thanks. And that's fine. You understand. You might go to a different part of the organisation or just let that go cold for a while. They'll say, yes, I can meet with you. You can meet with you at this date, at this time. Great. That's good.
So who's saying this? The assistant or is this all through the assistant still?
Yeah. You don't even need to speak to the senior manager. It's
Yeah.
basically they've read your letter. They think that's interesting to have a chat. And I mean, these people put yourself in their shoes as well. So they have challenges. So if there's something keeping them up at night and someone wants to have a chat about it and they seem to know a bit about, have some insight into this problem,
gotcha,
then you're helping them. And if so, that's what you want to tap into. What is that person or that role or industry challenges? So it's different. You need to, and so getting that information is critical to feeding into the letter and the why. Why should I meet with you? Well, I can share something with you or share some experiences that could give you a different perspective on what you're facing. So there's a value exchange even if nobody sells. They'll think they can get something.
Yep. And so then you call the assistant. You've had the initial call. They've given their manager the letter. You call back. And is this usually the time you will get rejected if you do?
Yeah, most of the time.
Okay.
So sorry, I forgot to mention the other option was, well, first of all, they reject you. Second option is they will agree to meet with you. The third option, which is an interesting one, happens fairly regularly, is that they will delegate another manager to meet with you. And that's really cool because if your CEO sends you a note and say, look, I got this really interesting call from somebody and looks interesting, and they could be the subject matter expert, they could be somebody that's facing this problem, and so you're definitely going to meet with that person because your CEO asked you to meet with them. So it's easier to go from top down than from bottom up. And also they'll be curious and they'll say, well, how'd you go with that guy from such and such a vendor? Did they share anything interesting? And they'll say, yeah, we had a chat and we're going to do a trial and we're going to see where it goes. It's not, it gives them a good motivation, when your boss says, I suggest you see this person or have a look into it.
Okay.
So, and then the last option is probably nothing happens. And so then you need to see, well, did they send it on to somebody or they just ignored you?
Yep.
But if you've built a good rapport with the personal assistant, then they'll tell you what's happened. And they'll say, well, look, Trish, the CEO said that Jonathan in marketing, who's head of marketing, needs to review this. And, oh, that's great. Well, look, it's been a few weeks. Do you mind if I just ping Jonathan to see if he's got that and if he has any questions? So it's just using that assistant as your best friend, not being pushy at all, but just being helpful and friendly and that sort of thing.
Very interesting. I've never thought about it like this.
Yeah, it's worked. It's I've been able to move across different industries and it's worked in what I've seen in B2B so I think it's worth considering for some of the listeners to see if it could work for them as well.
How difficult is it to initially draft that first sales letter? But then again, when I ask that, I think, well, do you really know your customers well enough if you're struggling to put any content on it? Yeah,
well, you've got it sort of goes back to the lean startup. You build a minimum viable product. You build something, and look, it's not going to be your best piece of work, the first letter you do. Mine definitely was pretty ugly, but you've got to get it out, and then you send it, and then you see what happens, and then you say, well, okay, that worked, and then you might refine it, or you might think, well, this isn't working. Maybe I need to take a bigger sample and see if that's a trend, or whether I need to change the structure so that it's hitting issues that people are concerned about. So what keeps people up late at night? Is it their business is are they in, like, for example, an engineering company that relies on the resourcing industry, and so our industry is shrinking. The value that our customers get from digging stuff out of the ground is decreasing. The price is going down. Our customers can't pay us as much. Therefore, what do we do? And is that a problem? how do I address that problem? Maybe I addressed it from a cost base, or maybe I addressed it from, I could talk to them about moving into new industries, applying those. So how can I help that customer improve their business and their customers' outcomes? And you just experiment, just keep trying. I review every now and then. I look at all the letters I've sent for the last 6 months. It could be 20 or 30 or 50, and then I'll look at the ones that actually got me in the door. So if I went to a certain organisation and then I'll tend to use those ones that work, and then I'll keep improving over time.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. My last question on this specific subject would be, where do you think that big cut through comes through? Is it the fact that you're calling it a letter and sending it through to the PA, and that means that at least you're giving yourself a shot? Whereas, as opposed to someone who's calling the PA just trying to, knock down the front door, basically.
Yeah, the cut through is a couple of things. Firstly, the way it goes into the way the message is directed is the way the message is transmitted to the customer.
Okay.
So via phone call. So I've got a letter, and then can I send that to you? So that you ask permission. They say yes. So they've given you a positive signal that I can send this letter. So that's a really good tick in the box. And then, in order to convince the decision maker, you're not trying to sell them a product. You're opening a relationship. You're trying to share with them information and insight that can be of value. So when they do that, they'll and if you hit the right spot, then you've got a higher success. Just to give you a perspective of my success rates and that, so it'll be between our success rate at that stage is a meeting with somebody from a reasonably senior person from that organisation to discuss with their issues and then hopefully set up follow-up appointments.
Yep.
It's it can be between 20 to 40%.
Yeah, that's
sometimes
amazing.
higher. So it's a lot higher than your average spam mail and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It just hits, just gets rebounded, because the organisation is almost like it's like a body, a living body sort of thing. So they've got antibodies, there's infections.
Yeah.
And so if you're simply a splinter, then the antibodies will surround you and expel you from the organisation. If you're trying to, I just thought of that analogy. Say that if you're if you look like them, if you look like if they see you as somebody that can help you, then they'll accept you, sort of thing. So they're not going to push you out, sort of thing, or create a defense against you, because again, put yourself in the shoes of the customer. If you've got a reasonably good sized brand and awareness of, everyone's going to try and sell something to you. It could be data, it could be phone plans, could be everything. And so how do you differentiate yourself against the other 100 people that are trying to get in, that don't even get their message heard because there's a really good PA there that knows how to stop those people and turns into sentinel mode and basically stops you from having any access to that senior manager who's got an important job to do, that there's some big problems for them to solve. They don't know that you could be the one that could help them with those problems.
No, it's very interesting. Does that pounding the pavement approach work anymore? That call? Because do some people still do that?
Like cold calling, just ring up out of the blue. Well, I don't know. Like it could work depending on the industry and depending on your message. It's like when I get phone calls from people, it could be, I work in ICT or professional services at the moment, and I talk to recruiters and other people, and usually if it's the really good ones, like they're here, they want to listen to what your challenges are. They don't want to just, hey, I've got some great people to provide to your organisation. It's like, no, I want to say, what are your challenges? Can we have a chat about how we can address those things? And as opposed to the reverse, where you're just trying to get off the phone, you've got other things to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people. I hate getting calls from people that I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
I always like to know or see. I'd prefer an email first, or I just like to have some some way of learning about it
Yeah.
with my own, on my own, basically on my own time, and then perhaps I'd be more open to a call. But and I suppose that's what I'm projecting when I think of sales. I think, oh, I'm going to be annoying them, or I'm going to be like, that's. Do you struggle with those sort of destructive mindsets?
The thing I struggle with, and I've been, even after 18 years, you still have to pick up the phone and you still have to make a call. It could be a call to an existing customer. It could be like, and another subject is really interesting is I've had a great meeting. They need the product. They've asked me for a proposal. They want to review it and make a decision. And you get all the positive signals from the meeting that, they're definitely going to make a decision at least and possibly select you. And then it goes into radio silence. They don't return your calls. They don't do that. And it's like, that's the time for me. It's really hard because I've got to think of a way to keep that relationship going without making them feel uncomfortable. Allow them that trust so that they can say, look, if you don't want to talk about, if you can't share anything right now because you're still going through that decision process, that's fine. If the answer is no, that's fine. Happy to know. I'd be keen to know what the answer is and why and that sort of thing. So that for me is the challenge. Is always just still following up when when you've got to think of a reason to call them and think of a reason that. And
do you have to think of a reason? You can't just call up and say, where are we at with? Yeah. Don't do that. No, just try to avoid that. I mean, that just imagine that someone's ringing. If you can't, if the answer is a maybe, but you're not allowed to say that, you have to sort of there's still somebody hasn't, there's no decision yet, sort of thing, it's. And early in my career, I would just call calls, and after I soon learned that you had to have another reason. You had to sort of talk to them about something. Say, like it could be like, hey, I read this. I found this article that's in your industry that addresses certain issues, and I thought you might be interested in reading it. Or hey, and you'd call to say that, or would you email?
Yeah, no. Usually the personal touch. So hearing their voice. The other thing is that people will, over the phone, in person is the best, but over the phone you can pick up a lot of signals and a lot of sounds in your voice. I'll tell you something really funny. Okay. We all have mornings where we might be tired, might not have got much sleep, with young kids and all that sort of stuff. But when it's your day, it's your day to make phone calls and call people up and follow up. You've got to actually be happy about it. And so, and that is a real challenge. Yeah. That's like, I feel like rubbish. I feel terrible. Yeah. And I just don't feel like talking to people today, but I have to. It's my job. Right. And so what I do is to actually trick myself. I actually force a smile when I'm talking to someone on the phone, because you notice when you smile, your mouth changes its structure. Yeah. So you're and people can pick that up on the phone, and all of a sudden, hey, they're responding to my positive signals. Yeah. And I'm feeling better now. So it's almost like a trick, I guess, to trick yourself into like talking, and you've got to be upbeat and positive, even if the answer is no. I said, okay, cool. Can you help us understand where we went wrong, or can you help us understand what happened and why you made that decision? Because that information is gold, because you'll then learn so much about who won and why did they win it, and also what's making them make that decision. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, no, I'm really fascinated by this discussion. So how do you think about, for a small business owner listening, or for an entrepreneur, how should they think about their sales process? Because there's a lot of software out there now. How do you think about your week when it comes to selling?
Yeah, no, good question. Where to start? Well, I'll make this statement, and that is that I think that sales is overly complicated by the industry. Okay. So you've got established organisations that do a great job at training on sales, and they have courses that you'll pay a lot of money for, or there's massively big companies like CRM companies that we could talk about, and they do a good job. They do a great product, but what are the things that they're in? What's the main issue for them is about increasing their sales and growing their business. And so it's been overcomplicated and really, sales can be very simple. And there's a great book by a guy called Daniel Pink called "To Sell Is Human."
Oh, right.
And he says that we're all in sales.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's to, if you're a teacher and you need to convince your class or a particular student the value of learning maths, or the
Mm-hmm.
value of studying and applying themselves, or if you're a parent, getting your child to brush their teeth and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So you're trying to help them to, you're trying to move somebody from one point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sales is.
Mm-hmm.
Politicians are salespeople.
Yep.
Their brand is themselves and possibly the party they associate with. But so there's probably 1 in 9. I think that's the ABS statistics. Is 1 in 9 people derive a salary from selling something where goods and services are transacted. But the rest of us are in sales as well in some respect. So to address that question, how do I think about it? So when I'm planning the week, I try to look at, well, what are the current opportunities that I have? So, and I see them as, I think I mentioned as an investor. So if I've got a portfolio of opportunities, so some are maturing early,
Mm-hmm.
some are maturing down the track, some may never mature, so they're just sitting there, and I need to be able to make a decision what to do. Where am I at in terms of that deal flow? What's
Mm-hmm.
going to fall through to this week or this month or this quarter?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of the actions is about opening up opportunities and closing opportunities. When you close one, you've either won it or you haven't won it, sort of thing. That the decision's been postponed or they've chosen somebody else. So always refreshing that pipeline and getting new things going. The other thing is about developing content. So part of sales is about writing proposals, writing thought pieces, like industry content, and as well as just general emails and follow up and things like that. So that's a big part of the job is
Mm-hmm.
following up, and then just having those meetings where you're trying to influence customers.
Yep.
So it is really quite simple when you think about it. You're trying to help your customers be successful,
Mm-hmm.
and also make a profit at the same time.
Yep.
And so you think about, well, where am I going to get the most success from? What's trending? What's if I, from looking at your past performance. So if I had 10 good opportunities, odds are that 3 or 4 will close. Then I need to then develop another so and so to get
Mm-hmm.
my targets. So it's about building opportunities and maintaining relationships with
Yep.
people.
So is it important? So is it, I don't know, let's say there's 4 stages to a sale. Is like you haven't contacted someone yet. Then the second step is, I suppose, you have contacted them.
Yeah. There's around about 6 roughly.
6? Okay.
So the first stage is obviously they don't have any awareness of what you're doing.
Yep.
The number 6 is you've delivered the product. They're your net promoter. They love your product and moving forward. And along those 6 steps they become aware of you. You could be a potential supplier to them, and you go through a process of understanding their issues and proposing an option. They consider that process. There's a decision process that occurs, and then sometimes negotiation as well, and then the decisions occurred and you go into delivery. So understanding where they're at that process, you can say, well, if say you've had a great month the previous month and you've got nothing left, you spent all your time trying to close deals the previous month, then you need to start opening new opportunities, building leads and prospects and things like that.
So that would be my next question, though. Like you're saying, if you tried, in the recent month to do all the closing, I was assuming that you'd need to be filling all areas of the pipeline every week. So from step 1 through to, or what is it, phase 1 through to 6.
Yeah.
I made the assumption when you explained that you should be addressing all those people at all those phases every week.
Yeah, that's the ideal. That's the ideal thing is you
okay,
manage a territory, you manage a flow of and a portfolio of opportunities. But life being the way it is, sometimes it occurs that you just it might take a lot of work. Like when I've you might be working on a tender, a massive tender opportunity with a big government or a big enterprise client. That could take 50 to 100 hours of work. So that just takes all the oxygen out of your prospecting because you're just trying to deliver that meantime.
Yep.
And you could be working weekends, late nights, and all that sort of stuff. So you don't have the bandwidth. And sometimes, and that happens to me. Sometimes we're behind. We've got to then start quickly, building up those opportunities and seeing what's out there in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I'm just relating it back to my experience with doing this type of thing before, trying to sell to businesses. Is I felt, I suppose, desperation at times, and I think that for me would impact the, my sales ability, because the more desperate you are, the more I suppose that's going to come across.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you this really interesting story. So I mentioned I did door-to-door sales when I was at uni. I was in a share house with a bunch of other guys, and it was a great house. And one of the guys, he had this side business that he sold window security etching. I'll just explain that. So the idea is that if you etch the vehicle identification number on every pane of window of your car, every piece of glass on your car, then somebody who steals that car and has to rebirth it and give it a new number has to then replace all the glass, because then that's a trailing evidence that the car was of its previous owner. And so while I was at uni, I said, I'll do some work with you, Chris. I'll do some door knocking. He was just the most relaxed guy you could ever find. He was a surfer from Sydney. Just had so he would dress up to look similar to a security guard. So he had epaulets, he had a name card and a photo ID and everything like that. And he was dressed in like blue sort of shirt and blue slacks and even a hat as well, I think. This is back in about 97, 98. Okay. And so he'd just rock up and chat to people, just really, he didn't care if he didn't make a sale or not, but he'd always make sales. He'd always and he could make back then, $500 in an afternoon, a few hours work. And I was like, man, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And so I said, I've got to get me some of that.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a few afternoons after uni, and it seemed to work all right. I was I was just enjoying the selling and just meeting people, and I was a bit green, so I wasn't overly keen. I was just like, having a good experience. Mm-hmm. And then I had this idea in my mind, I really need to make $500. I really want to make a lot of sales. And that was like 10 sales, so $50. And so I thought, okay. And so I was really determined on a Saturday morning to get that. And so throughout the morning, I was just focused, and people saw me and I was really focused. I want to make that sale. Mm-hmm. And I made no sales in the early morning. And I was feeling really desperate. I was like, oh gosh, what do I do? So I kept going, and I was feeling desperate and just like, I can't do this. And so I went through nearly the whole day and made no sales.
Right.
And just thinking about it now, if I was at my house and some guy had walked up and said, can I talk to you about, I wasn't thinking about them, and I wasn't relaxed, and I was giving a bad vibe because I wasn't chilled out, and I really cared about making a sale. Yeah. And
gotcha.
as soon as you have that sort of skin in the game, and you're like, this could be, I may not make my sale, I may not make my quota. As soon as you start worrying about that, then the game's over, because people can just smell that desperation and fear. And whereas if you're like, this mate of mine, Chris, he didn't care. He was like really happy, and he just wanted to have a chat. And he said, look, I just want to talk to you about stats of cars getting stolen in this region, and this is what we do to help people with that. And if you don't want it, that's fine. Just wanted to share that with you. And it was enough of a conversation for most people to say, yeah, I'll give that a shot. I'll try that out. And he was very successful, and he didn't work hard. It seemed effortless. It seemed really easy. Yeah. And that's probably the point, is that you when you talk to people, you have to be focused on them and helping them, and make them feel comfortable to say no, and talk to about whatever they feel like, sort of thing. And so if they do that, it's a lot easier. Just your brain, you're more comfortable, they're more comfortable, and you're more likely to make a sale.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's now you're saying that's something I do struggle with myself is like being in a meeting or talking to someone and trying to switch off that get back to business sort of voice in my head that's just keeps tripping me up. And, I struggle to, I suppose, be in that moment listening to them talk about their weekend or whatever it is. And part of my brain's just trying to rip the conversation back into, hey, we've got this product or we've got this service. And
the way to focus on it is a couple of things. One is to, again, like I said, not think about yourself, think about the solution. And when you're thinking about this, you're there to help them be successful. And this is what, and talk about their outcomes and that sort of thing. Not about, can we sign this off, or can we, that's more of a consequence of them deciding what they want to do. And if they don't want to talk about it, then that's good. Like, let's ask them what, I get I sense that you're not really you're we're going in different directions. And if they're open with you, they'll tell you where they're at, sort of thing, and what they think. If they're distracting, then they may have concerns they haven't told you about, and you've got to kind of build their confidence in you to want to be open and transparent, so that you can help them.
Very interesting. I love these conversations. I mean, I think do you meet a lot of people who are trying to improve their sales or trying to get through to a customer or a potential client, and there is that vibe they give off that just isn't letting them get through the front door?
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's a I've said that sales is simple, but it's also a dark art as well. It's also what happens underneath it's like the iceberg. What's happened? The greater size is underneath the water, and so I've been a mentor for startups in the area, and for different times, and it is a challenge to say somebody who's technical, who's very factual, and to they'll have a meeting with a customer or prospective customer, and they'll say, I like this. I think we should send us a proposal. We'll have a look at that, and then we'll give you a call. And the technical person will take that on face value and say, they're going to call me back. And they never call back, of course. And then it's like, well, why didn't they call me back? And that's just the way we are as humans. We sort of we need to be the ones to do the follow up and the chasing them down, and also to expect that they've got other priorities as well. It's not just what your thing is the most important to them, but it's other things they have to consider as well. So the so with sales, it's a hidden. It can seem like when. Interesting with IT companies and the technical people will look at the salesperson. They'll say, he's just taking them all to lunch, and they're just having a great time. They're not doing work, and they're just laughing on the phone and doing all sorts of silly
fun stuff.
Yeah, just fun stuff. Yeah, not seriously. And they make the mistake that it's actually a simple game, and it's it's actually really hard because in engineering and software and things like that, that's a defined science. You build this and this will occur. A bridge is made up of these elements, and it's been like that forever. Sales is what you don't see, and what you have to make a decision based on limited knowledge. So you have to imagine, what is the customer thinking right now? Put yourself in their shoes. From what I've seen, what I've heard, what are they facing, and make an educated guess. And then, is that the reason why are they turning away from me because they've got another supplier? Are they just busy, or has the priority dropped? Things like that. So what could be the things that go through their mind? Just tick them off in your head. They will, I'm making a guess, and I think that they've got other priorities, and I'll have a chat to them, and we'll see where they're at, and not pressure them. The just on hidden stuff. Some of if you know the story of Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, where he persuaded his friends he had to paint the white fence. He had to get the white paint and paint this fence, and he was given this job to do, and obviously no kid wants to do that. He was a master persuader, so he managed to convince his friends to paint it, but also to pay him for the privilege.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
that's a master influencer, a master persuader. We all see, if you're not a salesperson but you have to do sales, you see the obvious sales are the bad sales people. So the people who are you'll be at a networking event and you'll see someone will say, "Oh, here's my card. I sell this product."
Yeah, see ya.
And well, if you ask them, if you fall into the trap of say, "What do you do?" and they'll tell you everything they know about their product.
Yep.
But I don't want to know everything.
Yeah.
I just want a teaspoon. You've given me like a gallon of water.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so the idea is to so we see the bad examples of sales because that's obvious. The master salespeople, you don't know they've sold you something. You don't know they've actually they've talked to you about issues and they've influenced you to think along a certain way and helped you achieve something. And they say, well, that wasn't a sell. That was this guy from this organisation helping me. And
so would you say you failed as soon as someone goes, "Oh, I was just talking to a sales guy"? Have you lost at that stage?
Yeah, mate. It just depends. Sales is. I've got this great aunt who said, "I don't know why you have 2 degrees and you're in sales." Like it's changed. It has changed, and it's no longer. It's gradually changing. Sales, especially in sophisticated sales, like complex sales, and that you'll have somebody that's very highly technical, even and working with customers, and people who sell Boeing or Airbus planes. They're very, and they've got a team behind them, and they're very prepared and everything like that, and they have lots of great methodologies and processes. So they're very professional, but I think still that the death of a salesman mentality, and that you're just there to sell widgets, you're there to put your foot in the door. It's still there, but it is changing. I think that we're all into sales, like what Daniel Pink says in "To Sell Is Human" is so true, and that we've got, and believe it or not, we've got more ability to sell than we think, as humans, that's one of the best books I'd recommend for people to check out. And what else? Yeah, it's a good. I love sales because it gives me a flexible lifestyle. I can plan my week. I can plan what I do, who I want to see, and make decisions fairly rapidly about what my day is going to look like. Whereas, other professions, they're more structured. So.
And I think one of the things I learned about it, I wouldn't say I'm a great salesman, but I've certainly improved. Is focusing, as you said, focusing on them and focusing on the problem, and forgetting about your product. Yeah. Forget about your product for the moment. Just try and understand their problem, because what you're often. I think what I was often selling, I thought I was selling something different to what I was. And someone said to me once, I can't remember where I heard it, but do you want to buy a rectangular piece of metal off me for $500 or something? And I said no. But everyone has one, like an iPhone, right? So if we like that focus on that tangible product versus the experience you're actually selling. Yeah, exactly. Was something that completely eluded me for a long time.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of the best examples of that is also with Apple. And so the original MP3 player was invented by a company in Singapore. Okay. And it's got 128 megabytes size, and they said this is a thing that can store songs, it can store data, and it's very flexible, and it does. These are the qualities of it. Yeah. And Steve Jobs says you can put 1,000 songs in your pocket. Yeah, yeah. And that's the experience. That's the outcome. So, so he's that's one of the best ways to sell things. Is we're about helping people achieve things, be successful, and moving forward.
Any other sales tips you can share with us?
Okay, so what else? I think actually, there's one other thing. I'm giving all my secrets, but that's cool. There's one of the key things. Now, people always think about, I've got to be a good closer. I've got to close. And that's, to me, is a mistake. And I'll tell you why. Is that the best way to close is actually when you meet with somebody and to ask one single question. And the question is, what is your decision process?
Right, okay.
What is your decision process? So after you've talked about the product and talked about or a solution they could be interested in, they've expressed strong interest in going to the next stage of that process of sales. So how do you guys make a decision? Like who needs to be involved in this decision? Is it do you make the decision? Do you sign off, or do you need to get budget from your manager? Are you guys out of budget for the year, or do you need to get endorsement from the users of the product, or would it? All these different questions will hamper you if you don't understand that process. The other thing is that once you ask that question, you can go refer back to it, and just throughout that sales process, say, well, we had a chat 6 months ago. You guys were at that sort of stage, and seemed like you said it would be this process. Is that still the case, or has it changed? I said, yeah, actually, we had a CEO change, and he wants to be involved in every decision we make. So now we've got to build a business case. Okay, great. Well, let's work together, and I've got collateral I can share with you in terms of how we could help convince that stakeholder. So once they've shared with you the decision process, they've allowed you to be part of that process, even as a supporter, and you're kind of, I guess, you're helping them within that organisation to get that thing signed off, and so you're kind of like their coach in one sense to get sign off from other people. They might get you to present at a board meeting or some things like that, or go present to other people, but you're their champion within that organisation. The customer, your contact, is your person that will help you get across the line. So you want to make them be successful. So that's one thought.
What about it's just reminded me of something else. So that people can say they can give you whatever reason they want. That doesn't mean it's the right one. Finding out the real reason. How do we do that?
I think
because someone can say they're out of budget. They might not be. But that's just to sort of go, oh, we can't do it and get rid of you type of thing.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't ask it at an early stage. It'd be really when they're giving you signals, that a buying signal. So how much a buying signal is, how much does this cost, or could we get it done next quarter, or could we do this? And they're like, oh, it sounds you're giving me a good signal here that you're interested in going forward. And so it's only after you've made that sort of decision sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So that's later on in the process. You're going to find it out. But you might still, do you just have to accept you're going to encounter some throwaway reasons to get rid of you early on in the process? Yeah,
like I think maybe I'll put it this way. So say you have a first meeting with a customer and you give the demo. So you say, for example, let's go back. We met with the senior manager. They've discussed the issues, discussed how you solve problems for similar organisations. They say, okay, we need to have another meeting, but I need to bring these people into the room to listen to it as well. So you have that meeting with about 2 or 3 other people from the customer, and they say, well, okay, we really like this. What are the next stages? And that's definitely a big buying signal. Say, look, we're keen. We want to sort of go to the next level. That's when you ask them, what is your decision process? That's great. Great that you're interested, but can you just help me understand your decision process?
Okay, so that's a bit later on. You'll ask that question. Okay.
Once they've indicated they want to do something.
Okay.
Yeah. So because then, I mean, you should then follow up, and as I said, just reconfirm throughout that process that it's still that roadmap is still correct, because it'll change and things will happen, but they'll be more comfortable if you're telling you their issues and their challenges throughout that process. Then if you have no idea, they'll tell you some amazing stuff that, this person is going to be a blocker. We need to find a way to overcome their concerns or address their concerns, and how to do that is let them be really open, encourage them to really open up about their decision process, how they make a decision, how they sign off on something, and you'll be more informed and less likely to go in something blind. I call it like the valley of death. So, so for example, the first meeting, the energy is really high, and good fit, good match. Yeah, it's in the bag, and then it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Then you're in this death valley, and maybe it's if you do sell, it'll have to come up to a higher energy level where you were at the first meeting to then make the decision.
And can you blow it there as well by just being too annoying and just, interjecting too often and calling them too often or emailing too often?
Yeah, and that's why you need something else to talk to them about.
Yeah.
So you need something to build relations in other professional ways. It could be you say, look, hey, I'm putting on a lunch or a bit of a lunchbox kind of session on this topic, or we're bringing in someone from overseas. Just a way to build rapport. It could be, look, it could be if the sales cycle is a long size, so say 6 to 12 months, then you say, well, we'll probably need to just touch base over coffee once a month just to see how things are tracking and that sort of thing. So you build the expectation up front that you want to be involved in that decision process, and then they're much more likely to be happy to be open and transparent and that sort of thing. So if they really don't interest and they're fobbing you off, then they will fob you off and they will not want to talk to you, and maybe that's their way of saying no, kind of thing. So and you can sometimes call them out and say, look, I get the feeling that we may not be, you guys are probably not that interested, or it's not the right time. That's fine. I just thought, we just want to confirm that's how you see it at the moment, and would there be a time that it might change, or are there any issues that are causing that to happen? And so just saying what you see, and sharing how you see the situation, and saying, is that correct, and what that's, you want to leave with them on a good point, and because you never know. Like one of my I won't say who it was I sold to, but it was a major manufacturer, and I was selling at the time online compliance training, and it was one of my first appointments. It was like a lead from the previous salesperson, and these guys were like a big manufacturer, like big brand, global brand. You'd know it if I said it, and anyway, so it was their first meeting, and they said, we love it, it's great. We're going to the HR director is going to sign off on this in the next couple of weeks. He's going down to Sydney. He's going to present that, and so it's all good, And then 2.5 years later,
whoa,
that deal was signed.
Wow.
And so what happened was that there was somebody had purchased a piece of rubbish software to do a similar job, and it really was not. It wasn't fit for what they needed. Everybody that I was talking to was really uncomfortable and embarrassed that somebody had made that purchase, and but the bullet had been fired, so they had to let it run its course. Yep. So, and this is probably another tip that I could share is that I always just try to call them at a positive time when I was happy. So that when salesperson is happy when they make a sale. So the best thing you can do when somebody has just signed something is to call about 5 more customers and say, hey, just want to let you know that this organisation, you've probably heard of them, XYZ, whatever, they just signed up for this with us, and we're really excited. We're going to start doing the start the pro kickoff next week, and they're really going to be training their staff on these things, and the CEO's excited because they're going to have a video and all that sort of stuff. And you really you're psyched up, you're really happy, and they picked that up over the phone. They just feel that, this person's really excited, and they want to talk to me. So they're not trying to say, have you signed off yet? Have you got the is the sale? Where's the paperwork? It's kind of like, no, I'm really happy. I'm happy regardless of whether you buy from me or not, sort of thing. And you're building a positive relationship with them, and they sort of think, and the other thing is it's a Jones effect, the Jones next door neighbor sort of thing. So it's like, these guys are signing, and every time I made a sale to those long-term ones that I sort of never gave up on, I would pick up the phone and say, hey, guess what? These guys just signed, and these guys are coming on board, and they'll be implemented in the next 6 weeks, and it gives you confidence. It gives the person that sort of like an indirect nudge to sort of like, okay, so we're falling behind, and but not in a negative way. It's kind of like, catch up, let's and also that you're showing that you're excited for the customer. You're not just excited for great, I've made a sale. I'm gonna. So you're sharing that you really believe in your product, and that the person, and that you're sharing that enthusiasm in an indirect way, kind
Right,
of thing.
got it.
So
Yep.
so it ticks a lot of boxes.
That's
and
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
I liked your point about the lunch before that you put on, like, in having reasons to call someone and I suppose invite them just to a lunch, or that was, as soon as you said that, that resonated with me. I thought, that's the way I'd probably go about it, is have this. Would it be fair to say like an ongoing sort of catch up that whoever can comes along and you provide something of value, whether that's a lunch or a
definitely like a thought leadership thing. So
okay, yep.
and doing it in a way that's like a lunch is like you could either take them out for lunch to just to share with something as a more of a one-on-one, or you could get a group of people in the room from some of their peers from different industries, and get in some experts. Say, hey, this person's written this book about such and such. I thought I'm just organising a presentation, and like, yeah, cool. Okay, let's come along. I think that I want to learn about that, and they're seeing you from a different. And this goes back to what we talked about at the start. Is that I don't look like a salesperson.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, or don't sound like one, or present like one. It's.
I just think don't have the attitude of the stereotypical one, of the grind, like push type.
Yep. Yeah, and salespeople, there's different. They're pressured. They are under a lot of pressure sometimes to do that, and so they respond to that pressure by putting pressure on other people. And so so when you're not like when you're sharing something that's sort of like parallel to what a common issue, a parallel issue that gives them value for their time, you sort of like. You don't need to bring it up. You might just, or if you need to bring it up, it's really easy. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Like say, how's that all going with that? What did Sue say about the proposal? Did she give any feedback? Keen to sort of understand. So you're just trying to understand where they're at. You're not trying to sort of. Nobody's going to say, why didn't you sell? Like we're trying to just understand and help people. So, and the quicker you can come to that decision, yes or no, then your time, which is the most precious thing, is then more valuable, because then you can move on to the next opportunity. So it works both ways. Even if it's a negative response, it's still you've learnt something from why did we fail, and then you've got that intelligence for the next. You haven't kept it in the pipeline it hasn't been like a ghost opportunity that never will eventuate. It's you've closed it off, and then okay, clean slate. Let's open more opportunities and get going, and we've learnt something along the way, and you keep iterating.
No, I love it. I love the idea of having that constant catch up. Low pressure catch up, really.
Yeah, definitely. It's about building relationships, and and that and they know that even if their answer is no, that you'll still be happy to catch up. You still want to help them, and you have the right attitude. They might say, look, and this really has happened to me. A government customer, they said, look, guys, I need to go to tender. I need to go to market for your products, but we know the outcome, and the outcome will be no, but it will enable us to get to the next level, which could involve your solution. So it's kind of like you sort of say, we've got the same goal, is to give them a solution that works for them and for their organisation. And so sometimes it takes a few attempts to get through there. So you're there for the long run. You're there for to succeed. And if you've got customers from different companies over time, like they might come back to you because buy from you because they trusted you from the previous time. So that's that, and they endorse you as well. So that's good.
Love it. I suppose we'll wrap it up soon. But one question that I don't think we've covered yet is we're talking about. I think we've focused a lot on the bigger organisations and that, but. Is there anything you'd do different, like, with your letter strategy or whatnot, if it was a smaller, maybe you're selling to a business of, 10 people, or there might be 5 in there, up to say 20, 25, like all our listeners' customers might not, or aren't necessarily those big companies. Yeah. How does your strategy change there?
Well, a lot of those people may not have a PA or may not, that sort of thing. So usually you may have to do a direct approach. But again, the strategy is still the same. You're trying to talk to them about issues and challenges and helping them the first meeting's about opening the relationship, sharing some insight that they will value enough to come along, and understanding their problems and things like that, and so that you could potentially craft a solution. So but it's similar, but it's
you just don't get the dramatic effect of the letter though.
the letter you can still send the letter, definitely send it, and it may, so if you've got it depends on also how much. Once you've got a good template, then it's the amount of time to tweak it and change it for each customer is less and less. So you get better and better over time in terms of those letters. That it's not as much. If you're selling to the one industry and the one issues, then it's a good chance that you'll hit their buttons and they'll be interested in meeting.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Paul. How can we find out more about you and what you're doing?
Excellent. Yes. Well, I've got this, me and a good friend, Yuri Timmermans, we have this website called Big Jump. It's bigjump.com.au, and we've got this section called Sales Hacks. And so we also, on that site, there's a ton of different things like Lean Startup, the Meetup group and other stuff. But if you go to the Sales Hacks section, it'll actually have a lot of information about breaking into new organisations and that first meeting. So by the time this comes out, there'll be some good templates, some good examples, and you can go through it. So good way to get started.
Yeah, and you run some events too, don't you?
So on the site, I'll have meetup events where there's one on the coming up shortly that they can go to if it suits. But all of it's going to be open, available to anyone to read and to learn about. And we're keen to get feedback and say, well, did this work or needed to tweak it, that sort of thing. So it's definitely, the letter is the biggest challenge, as I've said, is getting the right letter to and the right message. And we're definitely interested in people's experiences.
Cool. And are you on social media? You're on the Twitters?
On the Twitters, yes. Yeah. And the
what is it? Paul _
T _ Davies.
Right.
Yeah, very long. And LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. But probably Big Jump's the best site to go to, and helping people make their big jump.
Brilliant. So. Paul Davies, it's been fantastic. Thanks for doing it. Thanks, Thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. I appreciate your company and look forward to talking to you again soon.